That was delivered well, wasn't it? On day one of my administration, I signed an executive order to slash federal funding for any school that pushes transgender insanity on our youth. We also banned the chemical and surgical mutilation of our children. We got men out of women's sports. How tough was that? But could you imagine, seriously, I'm just thinking to myself, transgender for everybody, men playing in women's sports, all of the different things we talk about, it's insane. And if you were here 15, 20 years ago, and if somebody made a speech about transgender for everyone, I always say because for everyone. Transgender, there are some states that actually can force it upon you without the parents' notification or approval. It's not even believable. But can you imagine men playing in women's sports? So you're up 15 years ago, I guess, probably 10 years ago, but 15 years ago, and somebody said, we will not allow men to play in women's sports. People would look at the person and say, what's he talking? Is he crazy? It happened. And not only that, the Democrats don't want to give it up. I watched a congressman fighting like crazy this weekend for men having the right to play in women's sports. And they don't understand. But I don't want to really fight them on that. I tell all the Republicans, let them go. Let them go. Just bring it up about a week before the election. Because you don't want to talk about it, but they say it's an 80-20 issue. I say, Dan, it's a 97-3 issue, okay? And transgender's about the same. It's crazy. It's sort of a crazy thing. It's a world gone wrong. Just a world gone wrong. And I made the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders. You're going to hate this. Male and female. You're going to. We got rid of a very sinister thing, the Johnson Amendment, so that pastors can speak the truth that's in their hearts. You know, I'll tell you, I was in a boardroom early on. Paula was there. A couple of people in the room were there. But we had about 50 pastors, some rabbis. We had people from a few different religions. And I was just running. I'd never done it before. So it was very early in the campaign. It was in early 2016. And Trump Tower was 68 stories up in the air, a beautiful boardroom, and places loaded up with these people. And they were all excited. And then at the end, I said, I'd love to have your support. And the room went dead silent. Do you remember? It's like, I said, what happened? I know you like me. What happened? Well, would like to talk to you about it later. Anyway, I said, all right, but if we could leave and we'll have another meeting maybe, but I would love to have your support. And there was, again, no answer. And I said, well, we'll figure this out. And I went to Paula and some of the others after. And I said, could I ask you, I know when I'm doing well, when I'm doing poorly, and I was doing really well. And then when I asked for support, it was like stone cold silence. I said, we have something called the Johnson Amendment, that if a pastor, minister, rabbi, or imam, or anybody says anything about politics, you can lose your tax-exempt status. I said, you got to be kidding. So that's what happened. And they were petrified of it. Yeah. Remember that? Nobody even wanted to talk about it. They were absolutely, they became a different group of people. And I pledged to them at the next meeting, we had another meeting a couple of weeks later with a similar group of people. And I pledged to them that if I win, we're going to get rid of the Johnson Amendment. This was Lyndon Johnson, who had a tremendous fight with a minister from, I believe it was Houston or Dallas. And they didn't like each other. And Lyndon Johnson was a very powerful president. He had good power, good strength. He ended up being very weakened by the position. But he had tremendous power. He was a big deal maker. And he got that done, which is pretty amazing that he could get that done. Everybody fought him, but he got it done. He pushed it through Congress, where you lose your tax-exempt status if you even utter a word about politics. And that was amazing when I heard that. I never heard of that before. And I said, we're going to get rid of it. And we got rid of it. You have got, because you're the people we want to hear from. We want to hear from you. I don't want to hear from a lot of people. I hear from too many people. You're the people we respect. Franklin is incredible. All of the people that are up here, I want to hear from these people. And they come from a different place than me. I come from a business place where there's a lot of rough people, bad people, not really religious people. There are some. But you're the people that I want to hear from. That's why we go to church on Sundays, or we go to wherever we are to listen to people of faith. And it was horrible. I said, you mean, when I heard that, and I said to the other people, that means that you should be the most powerful people on earth, in a sense, and yet you have less power. And I pointed down to Fifth Avenue, which was 68 stories below, and I said, that means that anybody on Fifth Avenue, in theory, has more power than you do. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be the opposite. We have to give your voices back. And I've given you voices back, and that's one of the reasons that we see upticks now, I think, in religion. So it's very important. You remember that moment when I said, I'd love to have your support, ladies and gentlemen? And it was like dead silence. I said, there's something going on. And we figured it out. We did something about it. So thank you. Thank you very much to Paula White, too. But upon taking office, I also ended the weaponization of law enforcement against religious believers and pardoned the pro-life activists thrown in jail by Joe Biden for saying. People don't realize about the Biden administration. It was a very mean administration. He's a mean guy, actually. Not a smart guy, never was, but he was a mean guy. No, he was a mean guy. And he knew enough about what was going on. He wasn't like some of the people that surrounded him on the beautiful Resolute desk in the Oval Office. They were stone cold mean. But Joe Biden and the Biden, they were mean people. What they did to people, what they did to J6, what they did to so many people, they were mean people. These were really radical, horrible people. And he wasn't that way 20 years ago. He was never the brightest bulb in the ceiling, but he was a man who wasn't overly mean that I saw, but boy, he became really mean, and his administration was one of the meanest we've ever had, and that's why they're out of here. And people, they're having a hard time getting jobs, and that's the way it should be, because they were bad. They did tremendous disservice to this country, including allowing 25 million people from jails, from prisons, from mental institutions, drug dealers, all over the world. They were entered our country from jails. The prison population of Venezuela was emptied out into our country. And that's what we're doing now. I spend so much of our time, Tom Holman and the people that have worked on this so hard. You know, Kristi Noem, all of them, they've worked on it so hard. It's like an unforced error. And to allow people into a country who are truly, there are evil people. We're all people of religion, but there are evil people, and we have to confront that. I just give my love and hope to the family of the young woman who was stabbed this morning or last night in Charlotte by a madman, a lunatic. Just got up and started. It's right on the tape. Not really watchable because it's so horrible, but just viciously stabbed. She's just sitting there. So they're evil people. We have to be able to handle that. If we don't handle that, we don't have a country. And I created the first ever Department of Justice task force to eradicate anti-Christian bias. And for those people that are a little bit naive or not well-read, there is a tremendous anti-Christian bias. We don't hear about it. We don't think about it. You hear about anti-Semitic. but you don't hear about anti-Christian. Now, you have a strong anti-Christian bias, but we're ending that rapidly, I will tell you. It's a whole... We're in a much different world today than we were 1 year ago. This is like a different world. And to support parents' rights, we're fighting, as you know, for school choice, which most people want. Most people want it. I'll tell you. Dan was responsible for getting it along with the governor of Texas. They got it in Texas, and we helped you a little bit. They needed about 20 votes from the legislature. He said, could you make a phone call to whoever they were, the legislators, who I like a lot. But they were about 20 votes short, and they have been for about 10 years. I said, all right, let's give it a shot. So I gave a big talk to who were they, senators?
They were House members, but you also helped us defeat about 15 anti-school choice people.
That's right. We defeated a lot of anti-school choice. But anyway, he got it done. So congratulations. That was a big accomplishment. But as part of our tax cuts, we've created a massive tax credit for school choice scholarships so that you can send your child to a school that shares your values, and you get tax credits and all sorts of good things happening. And I'm also taking action against anti-Semitic and anti-Christian bias in our institutions of higher learning. You've been watching that play out. They're making very substantial settlements. And Leo's involved, and Pam Bondi's involved. We've launched... You know, we're getting hundreds of millions of dollars in settlements, Pam, and Leo called me up, sir, you can do better than that. I said, what am I going to do? I'm going to get one way he really likes it. But he always said, everyone else says, that's amazing. Except for Leo. He says, sir, you could have got more. Oh, good. Thanks, Leo. But we've launched sweeping civil rights and Title IX investigations into more than 60 colleges going on currently, and universities to stop their violations of civil liberties and First Amendment freedoms. And, you know, we're involved very much in Harvard. That's one that people seem to be reading about more than others. We have many going. And other than having a radical left judge, you have a very radical left judge. But, you know, the appellate courts have been really good to us. So you go before some of these judges, no matter how good a case you have, you can't win. But we've had a lot of them, but we've done very well at the appellate level. And in the case of Harvard, we have an absolute radical left judge, disgraceful, should not even be there. But we're doing very well with Harvard, and we're doing very well with all of them. And where we don't win at the lower courts, which sometimes we do. In some states, we get a very fair shake. In other states, it's not even possible. But we've done very well at the appellate level and at the United States Supreme Court. But this includes an unprecedented $200 million payment from Columbia University. Columbia paid us $200 million essentially in fines and penalties. But many more settlements are soon to follow. And they're going to be behaving because they understand we're coming back. They would not let you have your voice. They wouldn't let the people in this room, any of them, have the voice, because that's not the voice they wanted to hear from. They wanted to hear from a very sinister voice, and we're not going to allow that. In recent years, we've seen far too many violent attacks perpetrated against Americans of faith, beautiful Americans of faith, including in our schools and places of worship. And you know about it more than I do. 2 weeks ago in Minneapolis, a demonic killer shot 21 people and murdered the two precious children at a Catholic school. Can you believe that? Hard to believe. And time goes by and people say, oh, I sort of remembered, but I remembered, I'll always remember it. What a horrible thing. Too many happens too much. Our hearts are shattered for the families of those beautiful children. And I've made clear, Attorney General Pam Bondi is working really hard that we must get answers about the causes of these repeated attacks, and we're working very, very hard on that. The Trump administration will have no tolerance for terrorism or political violence, and that includes hate crimes against Christians, Jews, or anybody else. We're not going to allow it. There was also a horrible killing recently in Charlotte, where I talked about, and so many others, and we're going to get to the end of it. And you know, when you have horrible killings, you have to take horrible actions. And the actions that we take are nothing. This cashless bail started a wave in our country where a killer kills somebody and is out on the street by the afternoon. In many cases, going out and killing again. Cashless bail, and you try and reason with people like in Chicago with the governor and the mayor. You try and reason with them, and it's like you're talking to a wall. It's just doesn't. I assume it's just a political ideology. They're not stupid people. Must be an ideology that's just buried in their head, and you can't do a damn thing about it. And we'd love to go into Chicago and straighten it out. You know, Washington, D.C., you'll be happy to know, is a free and safe zone. It's so safe right there. It was one of the most dangerous. Can you believe it? So, you know, you see the beautiful buildings, but we're going to also do an upgrade because a lot of the beautiful buildings have a little graffiti on them. They have roads that aren't proper. They have medians that are bad and falling down into the road, the dividers. We have things that we have to take care of and beautify. We want to beautify. Very little work will be done. I'm very good at that. That's what I really did the best in life, probably. I said, was I a better builder or politician? They said, I think you were a better builder, sir. I said, I didn't know if I was happy about that or not. But I was a really good builder, and I'll fix this place up for peanuts. I'll fix it up. We'll put in new dividers. You ever notice they're all rotted, rusting, and falling down on the road? Potholes all over the place. We're going to have this place looking beautiful within 12 months. Even the little white tiles in the tunnels. You know, you go through the tunnels, and there's little white tiles that have been up for about 60 years, and, like, there's pieces missing. And you can't match them, believe me, you can't. You try and match them, it never works. You can't. They've been up 60 years. You don't get the same batch no matter what you do. But we'll take all those tiles off, and you're going to have beautiful white tile tunnels again, and everything's going to be really the way it should be. Because when foreign leaders come, you know, I had to take down the tents. We had over 58 tent cities that we took down right in the middle of our parks, right next to our great buildings, Supreme Court. You'd have a tent city right there, and nobody would ever tell them to do it. We had a blue tent right on Lafayette, and they seemed to have a permit. And one of the fake news media was asking me the other day, what about the blue tent? What blue tent? Because all the tents you got, somehow these people were very well connected with the communist cause. And I said, there's a tent up there? Really? Yeah. And he was a friendly reporter for a change. He said, it's terrible that the tent. I said, I didn't know that. I'm surprised. And I checked, and there was. And we got it down very quickly. It's down. It's down. It wasn't easy. People chain themselves to a tree and this and that, but that's okay. They can chain themselves if they want. That was a tough one. That's been there for years. It's been there for many years. We took it down. Came down very quickly, Pam. So I hope Attorney General Bondi will be looking into some of these things, and I really know that some of them she's done such an incredible job. You know, she's got a lot of pressure on her not to do these things by a certain group of people that I guess don't love our country, or there's some ideology that they're just indoctrinated with. But she's going to do a fantastic job, and we're waiting for a call from Chicago. We'll fix it. Chicago. And again, D.C. is right now so safe you can go out. Friends of mine called, one in particular, he's been in D.C. for a long time. And he said, I haven't gone out in 4 years for dinner with my wife. The restaurants were all closing because people were afraid, even if they were in the restaurant, it didn't matter. They were held up. You know, guys would walk in with guns into a restaurant. And that's over. It's not happening. It's now safe. And this man said, I've gone out to dinner in the last week and a half 4 times. And I am so safe. My wife could meet me at the restaurant. She could walk by herself. There is zero threat. The National Guard working with the police, working with the mayor. The mayor has, you know, that's not her ideology. And now I think it maybe is her ideology. She's taking a lot of heat, too, from the radical left. You know, they don't like that she's allowing it. But look, she's going to either allow it or we'll just do it because, you know, it's just, but she understands. She understands that. But I can tell you the people of D.C. are thrilled. I have never had so many people. The other day I had a big scrum in front of me of the press. And I said, you know everybody here, or many of you have been mugged, right? And they're all going like, and these aren't people necessarily on our side. They're all going, yes, yes, yes. What about you? Yes, it's true. I was a couple of times. Every one of them. It's crazy. Not going to happen anymore. So right now we went from one of the most, as some people say, the worst, the most violent city. Can you imagine our capital being the most violent city? But it was really bad, into a totally safe zone. It's called a safe zone city. There's no crime. They said crime's down 87%. I said, no. It's more than 87%. Virtually nothing. And much lesser things that take place in the home they call crime. You know, they'll do anything they can to find something. If a man has a little fight with the wife, they say this was a crime, see? So now I can't claim 100%. But we are a safe city. You can walk to a restaurant. You can walk to the White House if you work there. You can walk to the Capitol. And even the Democrats, I can't believe it, but they don't want to admit it, but I can't believe it. We could do the same thing in Chicago, New York, Los Angeles. We did it. We saved Los Angeles. We saved Los Angeles, Dan. You know that. Los Angeles was a mess. If we didn't send our troops in, Gavin Newsom would have had a real problem. We sent our troops. The head police officer, the top person, said we could have never done this alone. We sent our troops right in at the beginning and we killed it. And it was nasty, but we killed it immediately. And I don't know why Chicago isn't calling us saying, please give us help. When you have, over just a short period of time, 50 murders and hundreds of people shot, and then you have a governor that stands up and says how crime is just fine. It's really crazy. But we're bringing back law and order to our country. And I began my remarks today by noting that the reverence for our Creator, we have reverence for our Creator. It is inscribed into our Declaration of Independence, a copy of which I have very proudly hanging in the Oval Office, an original copy, very old, beautiful copy. Next year, we will celebrate 250 years since that declaration was signed as part of the grand, well, this is really a commemoration like I think we're going to try and do a commemoration like nobody's ever seen before. But we've invited America's great faith communities to pray for our nation and for our people and for peace in the world. And it's going to be an amazing time. We're going to have an amazing time. We have the Olympics, we have the World Cup, and we have 250. Okay, the Super Centennial, as our man would say. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be maybe bigger than both of those events. You know, when I was president, I got the World Cup and I got the Olympics. I got them to choose us, Los Angeles, and I was very proud of it. The only problem was I wasn't going to be president because I would have served out normally my time. And then you had some very bad people who rigged an election, and look what happened. I end up getting the Olympics, the World Cup, and 250. Amazing the way God works, isn't it? It's amazing. Isn't it amazing the way God works? It's true. I got the Olympics, because I'm a little bit of a selfish person, I guess. I said, I got the Olympics, and Obama would not call. I'll never forget the head of the Olympic Committee called. And the mayor of Los Angeles called me, and he said, sir, the president will not talk to them. You know why? Because he traveled to Geneva or wherever to make the presentation, and he came in fourth. Now, a president shouldn't do that. A president should say, I will do that. I will make that journey, which has never been made before. But if I make that journey, you have to pick me. He didn't do that. That's why we had a country that was going to hell, because he didn't do a lot of things like that. So he ended up sitting there, and they announced that we're fourth. We were like almost last. And so he didn't like the Olympic Committee too much. So he refused to talk to him. So I get a call from the mayor of Los Angeles, who said, please, sir, would you call? We're ready to get it. And I spoke to a gentleman, and I believe it was Geneva, wherever they are. And I couldn't get him off the phone. He was so dying for love. He finally got something. Anyway, and he agreed that the Olympics would come to the United States, and I was so proud of it. And then I realized even then, I said, I'm not going to be the president. And then the World Cup, we got the World Cup. I did that one, too, with Johnny, and got the World Cup. And I said, I can't believe it. Can you hold it a little sooner, sir? It's all given out at all these different places. So I wasn't going to get that either, and now I got them both. And I can't say that I created 250. That one we. I'd like to say I created 250 years. I can't say that, but we are going to create a great party and a great celebration. And I'd like to ask a very good friend of mine, Secretary Scott Turner, to come up and say a few words about some of the things we're doing. And Scott, please take it away.